of comfort and go to greater things. Have you ever thought about it? But sometimes most of us can't leave what's familiar or our familiar to go to something uncomfortable because we're afraid to leave our comfort. We're going to unpack today about Abraham. We're going to talk a little bit about him, how he left his comfort zone to go to something unfamiliar, and God made him a great nation. I want to start by reading the biblical story, Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 9. It says this in Genesis 12, 1 through 9. The King James Version, it says, "Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred," his familiar, his family, "and from thy father's house, leave your daddy's house, your mama's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing." Now, those first two scriptures are powerful. And some of you need to hear that. You're in a comfortable zone, and you need to remove yourself from that so that God can take you to something better. Here's what the third verse says. It says, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Some of you are 45 and you're afraid to leave your area. You've been in the same area for 20 or 30 years and you're afraid to do something different. You stay in the same house, you're doing the same thing, and you say, "I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny." You got all these different things, but that's your familiar. God wants to change that and move you to something greater, but you have to move yourself out of your comfort zone. Here's what it says in the 5th verse. It says, "And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, and unto the plain of Moriah. And the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south." Now here's what you understand right here in the very beginning, if you must understand, that Abram in himself was willing to leave his land. He sat down and God gave him a promise and told him that if you remove yourself from your familiar, I'll bring you into something greater. If you remove yourself from your comfort, I'll bless your family, I'll bless your children, and I'll bless your seed. I'll bless you, everything that's connected to you, if you remove yourself from what's familiar. Now, we need to hear that because some of us don't want to move from the familiar. Some of us don't want to remove from a space or evident space of change or difference. We don't want to move ourselves from what's greater. We don't want to remove ourselves from the areas of life where we can see something new and see something different and see a change, because we are stuck in what is familiar, or what is familiar, or what we are used to, or what was said to us, and what we've been doing, because mama said it this way and daddy said it this way. But I'm telling you today that if you remove yourself from what's familiar, God can do something unfamiliar in your life to bring you to a path and a place that's beneficial to you. The first point I want to talk about is your faith. Here's what we need to understand about faith. Faith simply is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So faith is something that we have to operate. Sometimes we move, we don't know where we're going. But if you get out and start moving, God will open doors to show you to the place where he is trying to take you. Look at what it says here. It says this: the definition of comfort zone is this: relying on familiar beliefs and practices without trusting God fully. So why does God want to remove you from an area that's familiar to bring you into something too familiar? It's because of what? He wants to remove you from that so he can show you how to trust him. Some of you too attached to your situation. You're too attached to your past. You're too attached to your job. You're too attached to things inside that you've been connected to so long. So you're trusting on what your ability. You're trusting on what you do. But when you get outside of your comfort zone, that's when God can use it. I need you to hear me today. When you get outside of what's familiar, those four walls, those areas of indifference, when you get outside of that, then that's when God can use you. I need you to hear that today. It takes your faith. Watch this. So the challenge for Abraham left his family and his friends and everything that was familiar to him in faith to follow God's promise. Everything that was familiar, he moved himself from all that to follow God promise. And nobody spoke speak to him. His great grandfather didn't do it. It was God that was speaking to him and tell him to remove. So we need to understand the thing about faith is that we trust God with your own unknown future and take steps of faith even when it feels uncomfortable. Doing something that's different is not going to feel comfortable. Doing something that's new is not going to feel comfortable. Doing God's true purpose is not going to be comfortable because God will take you to comfortability, but it's not going to be comfortable because in the beginning stage you got to build and you got to work and you got to efficiently do and you got to make a process that's different. It's like me when I started the church. I started a young man. I had full-fledged everything. I was set. I had all leaders in place. Everything was already pre-made for me. And things kind of were moving slow, but then when there was some friction that came, when the friction came and things started changing inside of me, and God was taking me through things, and I lost everything I had at the beginning, and I was out there by myself trying to do it with the few that I had left, and there was a lot going on. I was like, God, you left me, you're not with me. But God says, I gotta make it uncomfortable because you've had it too comfortable. I gotta make it uncomfortable. Watch this. Myron Golden says this. I think it's great that he says this, that disruption always follows intention. That means anytime you have an intention to do something, and you always have an intention to complete something and be a part of something, when you always have an intention to go forth, there's always going to be a level of discomfort. But we don't sit down and we don't count up the cost. We don't sit down and see what it would cost to move to uncomfortability. We get just enough and just the right amount so that we can actually stay the same and be just enough when God is broadening our territory. Here's the next thing. The next area that God was changing, the first area is faith. The second area that he will bring a change to is your relationships. Here's the thing about relationships. Relationship, according to comfort zone, surrounding yourself with familiar people and avoiding new connections. We'll always run to what's familiar because we know them. Yeah, Jeff will come fix my car. Oh, yeah, Bill will do this. Or Cindy will come and help me with this. Or Mama going to always make sure I got a plate. Mom going to make me do something different. I can always be a part. My relationship got to be a little different. My son, my baby son, David, he went off to the service. And when he went off to the service, he wrote me a beautiful letter. And he was saying, Dad, I never thought that it would be the way that it would be. The environment was different. He had to learn certain things. He had to do certain things without his parents coming to save him. He was in a different environment and in a different place, learning different and new things that he had never experienced before that caused him to be a better man. And that gave him more vulnerability. I told him when he came back home and he was ready to come back home, and I asked him, I said, why'd you come back? Why you didn't stay there? Why you didn't go somewhere else? Why you come back here? I asked him that. But when he stepped away, he told me that, Daddy, it was different for me. I had to learn to adapt. Some days I was sick and I was by myself and nobody could save me. And when things are uncomfortable, it's like that. You feel like that you're by yourself because God is teaching you to trust in him, and he's creating a relationship. He's creating a greater relationship with you, and he's allowing you to create a greater relationship with people that you don't know. You're getting new friends. You're meeting new people. David met a beautiful lady when he was out of there, so he has a beautiful daughter from that relationship. So it's like we never know what God's taking us if we don't move out of our comfort zone. I remember the day he came from college and told me, Dad, I don't want to finish college. I want to go to the service. And he gave me all the things that were his pros and cons. But that was his way of thinking. That wasn't my way. That wasn't his mother's way. That was him thinking his own way because he stepped outside of what was familiar. He did something different. Watch this. So the challenge for Abraham, the challenge that happened to Abraham is that he left his family and his friends to form new relationships in a new land, a new place. So what is it saying? You need to understand and be open to new relationships and community, even if it means leaving familiar ones behind. What should we do in that case? Do we leaving familiar ones behind, the people that we love, the people that we care about, the stuff that we want to stay there and constantly live? And sometimes we have to move ourselves to a different place to connect to different people so God can open different doors. But if we never do it, we'll always stay the same. And here's the third area that God wants to touch, even when you make this uncomfortable move, is our finances. We must go to, we are comfortable with sticking to the same financial bracket, the same financial, the same amount of money, the same job, and waiting for them to give us the raise. And see, some of you are like that even in starting your business, because you know that when you start a business, it's going to be hard. When you start creating a company or a business, it's going to cause you to do some things different. But there are ways that you can be truly successful in doing business. There are ways you can be successful in business if you spend the time, listen to me, if you spend the time growing the gift that's inside of you. If you spend time growing the business, it will become a true success if you follow the proper steps of being a success. So what is I'm saying to you? What am I saying to you is that even though there are some habits that we have now to avoid risk, God will cause us to, number one, not just to avoid risk, but to continue to walk into a place of trust and be more calculated with what we do, be more calculated with the things we do, be more calculated with how we are creating things. So what that means is Abraham himself, he had to leave his secure life in the city of Ur to face uncertainty at Canaan, a total different land he had never lived in before. He had to go and face uncertainty in order to become. So what is that saying to you? To trust God with your finances and take calculated risk to follow his leading. Calculated risk. Let it be a calculated risk. Know what you can do. And then figure out what you can do to be better at what God has for you. Figure out what you can do to be more at what God can do. He can use a little bit and make it big. What business do I have to do? What job do I have to do? What can I create to make money in my sleep? God, I need unexpected money to come to me in this season. And God will show up for you when you go to the uncomfortable zone. You go to the uncomfortable areas of life. And here's the fourth area is your health, your mental and physical health. This simply means that maintaining familiar habits and avoiding challenges that promote growth. So what you got to do now? If you're trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to be like you look like when you were in high school, if you're trying to do that, it's going to cost you something. You can't eat the same way. You can't eat the same things. You can't drink the same things. You have to make the change. If you're trying to think different, you have to read new books. You can't just read the Bible, even though that's a wonderful book, but there are other books to help you understand the Bible and people who have applied the principles to make the Bible better. There are things out there. Miles Monroe has plenty of books that are just bust your mind open with leadership. There's so many. Byron Golden has books that he has a book about finances that'll blow your mind. Trash Man to Cash Man. I'm telling you today that inside of each and every one of us have things to do. In order to have mental and physical health, we have to exercise it. That means you got to read more. That means you got to study more. That means you have to work out more. You have to walk a little bit more. You have to turn your plate out. You can't eat after 6. You got to figure out ways that works for you to make your body be more healthy, to make your mind be more healthy. Listen to audiobooks if you don't like to read a lot. Do what you have to do to open your thoughts. But God has to take you to a greater place if you start reading more. If you start doing more when it comes to your mind and to your physicality, you're more. You have to listen to things that are different. You can't listen to people who are always eating and pigging out and talking about, I'm going to get something to eat, and I'm going to be there a long time. I'm going to the buffet today, just me and you, trying to bring your stomach open up, gorging and drinking and all. You got to figure out what it is I'm going to do different. And you got to change your environment if you want to be greater. So we need to understand what simply means we got to prioritize self-care and take care of your physical and mental health. You have to prioritize self-care and take care of your physical and mental health. You have to step out of your comfort zone. So I want to give you some action steps today. I want to give you some action steps that will take you to a place that you can utilize when you're going to your new to get you out of your comfort zone. Let me say that. I'm going to tell you some steps that you can do to get you out of your comfort zone. Get your notepad if you haven't been taking notes. Get your notepad right now because I want you to write these down. The first thing is this. You need to listen to God's call. Listen to his call when it's time. You will know how I got my call. It was different. How I got my call to do something different was totally different. I have been preaching. I think I talked about this the other day. I have been preaching and teaching for years. And I was a part of the church. I took over my father's church in 2014, October of 2014. Took over his church and was doing it. I had an idea where I wanted to do ministry and where I was going in ministry, how I wanted my life to be in ministry. And I had a plan to put together. I utilized some things and I went through a season of just losses after loss. After that, probably about 4 years, things were great. The church was packed every Easter. And Lord, we was doing something. We was going to a higher height. We was doing everything. Everybody was working in place. Things were moving. But God said, wait a minute, let me throw a hiccup in where we're going. Let me do something a little different. Let me throw a hiccup in what you're doing and the change you're about to make. And I was in the hospital. I got in the hospital that years. And I sat up in the hospital. It was the last time when I knew that God was really talking to me. I sat in the hospital. And first I had a conversation with one of my mentors. We had a conversation. My other mentor, I had a conversation. And they both were saying the same thing. I just didn't want to hear it. But that 35 time was that I was sitting up in the room when God began to speak it to me. Because I listened to my mentors and I listened to what God had to say. Because they could be talking and I get it. And they could just be doing from their personal self. But God told me. I was in the room and in the hospital. I was in the hospital bed and I laid up in that room. And I woke up in the sun after my surgery. It was the day after my surgery. I had 9 blood clots removed. And after my surgery, I got up. And the sun was like just really shining over the horizon. I never seen it. And the sun, I was in the corner room. And I heard God say, now it's time to do something different. I just heard him say this was plain as day. He was like, now it's time to let it all go. I didn't know what that meant until now I get it. He was removing me from what was comfortable to take me to something comfortable. That was not what people thought or what people should think, but what he wanted me to do. And that's when I had to have total reliance on him. You got to trust God with the unknown. Have faith that God. The second thing is you got to listen to God. Pay attention to God's leading and prompting in your life. That's the first thing. The second thing is take the first step. Start with a small step of obedience, even if it feels scary. Take the first step. You got to do something. You might have to go to a different city. You might have to go to look at a different job. You might have to start a different business. What is it that you're going to step out of? Now, what's for me? That could have been mom and daddy's business, and you want to make cakes, and they over there building cars. You got to step outside something. You got to step outside of what's familiar to go into uncomfortable. To go into uncomfortable. So God can make you comfortable even in life. And the third thing is you got to trust God with the unknown. You got to have faith that God will guide you and provide for you. You got to trust that God will guide you and that he will provide you. You have to trust that God is going to do it daily. You have to trust he's going to make it happen daily. You got to trust that God's going to do it. God, I'm going to trust you. The step I'm about to take, you're going to be with me. The step I'm about to take, you are going to be with me. You are going to direct me. If it ain't you, I don't want to do it. If you ain't speaking, I don't want to hear it. And I'm telling you this, when you trust God in your uncomfortability, God will lead you to a place of comfortable, to where you'll never believe that you ever made it to that avenue of life. Here's the next thing. Number 4 is you have to be open to the new. Got to be open to what's new. Go do some new things. Do your hair different. Do something new and different with your life. Do something different with your body. Look, I'm teaching outside. This is different. I'm out here by the pool. And I said, I'm going to put up the camera and I'm going to teach a little bit. I'm like, man, let's just teach outside today. Let's do something different on this Labor Day. on this day. Let's do something different. Let's stand outside of something that's not familiar. Let's do something different. So when I'm talking about familiar, I can be in familiar. I don't have the green screen up. I don't have the backdrop. But let's do something unfamiliar, because people will recognize what God is in your life when you get to a place of knowing that what is unfamiliar in my life has brought me into a greater place. And you can tell somebody else. We got to pull others out who are stuck. We got to speak to other people who are stuck. We got to speak to the energy that goes along with them, because the energy that thrives in our life is trusting in God. I'm telling you, it's trusting in God. We know that Jesus, before he died on the cross, prayed at the Garden of Gethsemane, take this bitter cup from me. He didn't want to do what him and God had sat down and had a conversation about. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to go through all of this. But then he know I made a pact with my God. And he said, nevertheless, not my will be done, but yours. And some of you have to say the same thing. Nevertheless, not my will be done, for yours. The next move in my life, there's a little scariness there. There's a little fear there. But I know I got to do it. I know I got to do it, because everybody else did, but God is there with me. I gotta do it. I gotta make the change. I gotta do something different. I gotta walk into what's unfamiliar. And what are you willing to do today? What is your thing today that you need to make, that you need to walk away from? What is the thing today that you need to step out of so that God can do something new in you? What is it? And here's the next thing. The next thing is this, is you have to embrace new relationships, challenges, and opportunities. Embrace relationships. Go start some new relationships. Do something different. Not the same people. Here's another thing. Here's a caveat. Let me throw in here. Stop connecting to people who don't believe in you. Stop connecting to people who don't want to believe in you and who don't want to push you. Stop connecting to those people. Those people don't mean you well. They don't mean you greatness. They mean to pull you out of what you're in. And you got to connect to people who are rooting for you, who are pulling for you, who are pouring into you, who are making you better at what you do. Because the energy that comes with success, that breeds life, that brings endurance, that brings change, will come from you moving from what's comfortable to what is unfamiliar. And here's the fifth thing. The fifth thing is this: persevere through discomfort. It's going to be some discomforting times. I know there will be some times you're not going to even know why you're doing certain things. There's going to be some areas of discomfort, some places. It's like out here in the heat. I like being in the air. You see I'm sweating on my face. I don't like all that. I don't even got time for nothing. I'm just sweating. But it's uncomfortable for me. I would rather be in the cold. I'd rather be cool doing this. But I wanted to show you something, that sometimes God wants to pull you out of what's familiar to bring you in something unfamiliar so he can do it. It's like when I said that to y'all, God just blew a breeze and brought comfort to me. That little breeze just blew a breeze for me to bring comfort to me. You got to embrace the discomforting aspect. You got to embrace where you are going. You have to embrace what you are trying to do. You have to embrace this. Listen to me. If it's uncomfortable and God has told you to do it, he's going to eventually make it comfortable. But you got to go to the uncomfortable, just like Jesus. You got to go through what he went through, carrying the cross, the cat o' nine tails, the spit on, the drinking the vinegar, to just going through the bad words and the blasphemy and people talking about him and saying he wasn't the Son of God. He had to go through all those negative aspects to sit at the right hand of God where he is today. And God has the same for you. That's the place that God wants you to get to, because he's trying to get you to that place of have persevere through discomfort. The next thing, stay committed to your journey, even when it's hard. Oh, did you hear that? Stay committed to your journey, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't feel well, even when it doesn't feel like the best. You got to stay committed to your journey. You got to stay committed to the process of doing it. I talk about this all the time, that when I first started playing the piano many years ago, it was just a fluke. I really had no idea. I would dab around in school, everybody used to play Jesus is Love and stuff like that. And then I played the drum. I was a great drummer in high school, and during church, I played the drums for the church. I would play every Sunday. We had an organist there, and I would play for him. And I learned how to play, In the church I came from, I learned how to play shouting music, good dancing music. I was good at that. And I started playing jazz in high school. I played in the classical band. My highest drum was the timpani. But I can remember when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I started on the bass drum. I started on the lowest drum. The bass drum is 5 drum. You got to be great at it. You can be good at it. And I started playing the bass drum. I was playing the bass drum. I was good at that bass drum. I got good. People used to crowd around when we played, stuff like that. And then I got elevated. Came on my sophomore year in high school. My band teacher came to. I need somebody to play this drum. I need you to learn to start playing it. And here's the thing: the same thing that people were doing, that the seniors were doing in my freshman year. Stuff I wanted to get to. I jumped on a different drum to learn something new. The only thing about timpani, it's a tunable instrument, which means in a tunable instrument it changes. That means it has different sounds. You got to play on different frequencies. It's different than just playing a bass drum. The tritones, which are 3 drums I'm playing instead of 1 bass drum, I'm playing 3 drums with 3 different sounds. And I became good at it. I became like a showstopper. People stop and just watch me play them tritones. I became totally different. I had this little thing that I do that it was like the triples. That was like this little sound I used to make. And it was phenomenal. I became great at that. And I'm saying I removed myself from the bass drum to learn something new. I took the challenge of what my leader was telling me. I took the challenge of what my band director said to go into something better. Well, I picked up 3 drums. And I went from there, went to learning jazz. I started playing in the stage band. So then I got better at my drum set because I knew the rudiments. I knew the mechanicalism of playing. I knew how to play without getting tired. I knew to practice my rudiments every day. And what I'm saying to you today, it's the same thing when you move into your level of uncomfortability. When you move into that place where God is trying to take you, you're going to learn. You're going to learn is that my practice, I got to have my rudiments for living. Like I had my rudiments for playing the drums, you got to have your rudiments for life. It's what you got to do every day to make you sound better. And that is you got to pray, you got to worship, and you got to spend time making sure that you pray, worship, and pray and worship, pray and worship until it just get out of hand. And make sure you're spending time reading your word every day. Regardless, if you listen to it online, however you're going to do it. Because I'm letting you know when you get in uncomfortability, it's God simply saying that your relationship with me is going to have to become greater. It's like that with anything in life. When you move to something that God has moved you to, and it seems to be uncomfortable, prayer, reading your word, and worshiping God every day is your rudiment for life. I became a great drummer. I was playing for plays. I was playing for all types of stuff. I was playing for events, and I had a great skill. But God took me to another level. She took me to the piano. Started playing that. That was another level of my skills, one of my rudiments. I had to learn skills. That's the first thing that I had to learn. And those skills are still with me today. I still have muscle memory because of that. And I'm saying to you, even though you get into a place that's uncomfortable, the 3 keys is praying and reading your word and worshiping God every day. Understanding that His word is for your life. And you follow His word, you'll walk into those levels of life. So you got to stay committed to your journey even when it's hard. Stay committed even though it's hard. Even if you don't see change coming, stay committed to it. The move that you make it. But stay committed to it because it's something different. It's a change. It's learning new things. It's learning new relationships. It's learning different environments. It's learning things new. It's attaching to a God and trusting Him so He can bring you to the place in life that He wants you to come into. And we need to know this. Remember, Abraham's journey shows us that growth happens when we leave what is comfortable. Growth happens when we leave something that's not familiar. Growth happens when the changes that we make affect us and other people around us, but they affect you. If you're married, it affects you. If your wife, it's your family. It's your area of change. It affects that. And your changes begin to happen when you step outside of what's comfortable. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do different? How are you going to walk into a place of life? How are you going to walk into a place of difference? What are you going to do different? And what can God do through you? Because I believe that in every energy of life, when we focus, when we stay committed, when we follow these areas that God has given us in life, we can go to a greater place. Are you willing to go? Are you willing to make the change? Are you willing to do what's different? Are you willing to walk where others have never walked before? Are you willing to do something different than what your family has done? So God can bring in you what he has to pull out of you to take you to the place that he's going to take you. Are you willing to do it? Are you willing to walk in that place? It starts today. It starts now. Listen to me. Start today. Start now. Your change begins now. Do it now. Do it now. Heard a little thing online. The guy was saying that if you get out the bed, you first got out the bed, you say, do it now, do it now, do it now. Say it over and again, you will do it. Because most times we get out the bed, that Lord, I got to get up. Lord, I got to go to work. Lord, I got to do this. Lord, no. Say, do it now. Say, do it now. And that's when life will bring change to you. I want to say to you today, blessing on your faith, blessing on your family, increase to your finances, and know that God is always with you. See you next time on the next video. Have a great day.